Astra Awani dan agenda Awani tidak pernah melupakan nasib masyarakat yang kerap kami bincangkan. Walaupun sudah berlalu serangan-serangan besar misalnya, tetapi pembinaan semula itu yang kerap kali kadang-kadang tidak lagi dilihat oleh media antarabangsa, terus kami telusuri, dan oleh itu saya ingin meminta izin untuk berbicara dalam bahasa Inggeris kerana jarang dan sukar untuk saya mendapatkan temu bual secara langsung dengan wakil penduduk dan mereka yang rapat terus dengan isu yang berlaku di Gaza dan di Palestin. That's why I'm very much honoured to have with me Brother Munib Abu Ghazali. Thank you so much for making time to be on Agenda Awani. He's the country director for Islamic Relief Worldwide for Palestine. And then, of course, Brother Zairul, who's from Malaysia, but from time to time, always appearing to talk about not only Gaza, but, humanitarian NGO works. Maybe a quick recap of 1.7 million people in such a small area, relatively, compared to others living in the same area around it. When we talk about Gaza, the difficulty for me is trying to bring out the human stories, the individuals, the families, the communities. It's very easy to just paint it as numbers and statistics, death and wounded. But we do know that for quality of life, we need to talk about less adventurous thing than just surviving bombs and guns or rubber bullets. So tonight I would like to take your experience and share it with the audience in Malaysia on how do we build up a community that has been suffering like no other community has been suffering for decades, for example. Where do you start? What was your experience, and even is your experience until now? Do you look at the physical infrastructure first and then come in and then try to manage the rest, the emotional side, the psychological side, the community trust and ability to build themselves? Where do you start and how do you figure these things out? Because as a lot of media is experiencing in Philippines, the moment you arrive at the typhoon hit area, you are also beholden to the problems that are affecting them. Lack of communication, lack of infrastructure, transport, and all those. So how does an NGO work big things in one of the hardest hardship around suffered by a community, which is in Gaza?
Yes. First of all, I have to thank you for having me on your program here. I also thank the Malaysian government for inviting me to attend an MTCP training program in Malaysia.
Okay.
And I have to raise our really admiration for your community and for your government for the developments that I saw here, which is my first time to be to this part of the world, and it's really amazing. I'm really glad to see that. Going back to Gaza, actually, you touched on a very critical topics and really complicated. Actually, Gaza is unlike any of the other emergencies around the world that you have mentioned. Some of them is basically a very small area, 365 kilometers. I'm not sure if you can relate to some of the areas of the world, and basically very, very slim strip on the Mediterranean beach. And the population, as you said, is very high in this area. It's basically closed from all the sides with wires and walls, if I may say. So a struggle that we're facing is having the community able to survive and to live side by side with small people, young generations, older generations in this very small area with numbers of challenges, you name it, from electricity to jobs, future to schools to health system to many, because of the weakness in health system, for example, many of the people get referred to have treatment abroad.
I see.
Getting abroad is close to impossible. So imagine a person having to wait on the border, waiting for either knowing the results of his case or not knowing the result of the case.
A normal life for a young person in Gaza is maybe what, 10% of what Malaysians on average? You've seen my country, Malaysia.
Frankly speaking, it's less than 10%. It's we have a lot of, I mean, the young generation have a lot of courage and a lot of innovation, and all the know-how that they have is probably through the electronic ways of internet and TVs and things like that. But on the ground, they practice probably 1% of it, not 10% of what the other part of the world are practicing. You know.
I've been to post-tsunami Aceh, and before that, I used to have this romantic idea that the moment United Nations go into any needy areas, things will be largely solved. But I know from experience that that is not the case, especially in areas where it's outside of capital cities or big infrastructure areas. So in Gaza, which highlights the point, if countries and big organization fails, then the slimmer and faster, more resourceful NGOs will work. So I want to link that to Zairul after this, because sometimes a lot of people in Malaysia feel, what can we really help? I give few ringgits here, I give all clothes there, and you know, but in the 21st century, people want to help more and be more empowered in helping. So I'm going to go to Zairul, how we complement what the good work like you and other NGOs are doing in Gaza. How best, because we want to make it strategic. We want to match needs and supply to the needs directly. So let's do that discussion after the short break. Terima kasih kerana masih menonton agenda Awani. Saya berbicara dalam bahasa Inggeris kerana kita ada tamu yang begitu diharapkan. Brother Munib here. He's been helping the people in Gaza for a long time. So I want to go back to go for the first time to Zairul tonight. And there's a lot of people who think of effectiveness and efficiency when they want to donate or help a cause. So how can we match what we are giving from Malaysia, which is thousands of kilometers away and hours of flights away, to directly help? Because you have Islamic Relief Malaysia to coordinate, you have Islamic Relief in Palestine. So how do you really match it?
Thank you, Cik Kamarul, for the well thought questions. Basically, we have been actually on the ground for the last 30 years. We have been in 40 countries. We are certified under the United Nations Economic and Social Council, and because of that we abide to certain code of conduct and certain SOPs in doing things. So it's not just a matter of getting some donation here and there and just plucking in wherever we like. That's number one. Number two is, after going through all this journey of experiences and being humanitarian, we go beyond race, color and religion, and even, I mean, political boundaries. So the horizon is very big. Now, number three is, within the Islamic family fraternity itself, having our branches in more than 40 countries, some of us were actually established in certain so-called more stable and richer country, alhamdulillah, like Malaysia, or US or UK or whatever, to be what we call as a fundraising partner. Our main KPI or our main task is actually to raise funds. To raise funds, to raise money to help the poor. And our brothers or our team, say in Islamic Relief Palestine or Chad or Somalia or Kenya, they are what we call as our field officers. Their KPI or their main task is actually to implement projects as effective as possible. So within the family itself, we go by the same vision and mission.
Okay.
We abide to a certain charter, transparency, accountability, and things like that. And within us, the supply and demand is basically coming, like the supply is coming from what you call the field office, because they are there, they are local, they understand the needs. They will do the independent, accurate assessment to make sure that the community is being served with whatever their needs are.
Yes.
And this comes in the form of concept notes or project proposal. And this project proposal then is being facilitated by our HQ, of course through our normal email system, whatever, is being then shared among the partners throughout the world. The fundraising office.
So in the case of Gaza,
yes,
how has Malaysia been helping?
Alhamdulillah. So far, if I can be more specific here, in 2013 itself, we have committed to about 7 projects, which covers 7 humanitarian sectors. Yeah, we committed a certain amount, and this concept note or proposal which we got from our colleague in IR Palestine is being then, submitted to potential donors from all walks of life, all colors, and so on. And of course, then they will actually donate. Yeah. And of course, interestingly, Alhamdulillah, within the Malaysian community, we have got very good Samaritans out there. You know, people are very sincere. To the extent that the most favorite question which we used to get in the Malaysian office is that, can we donate our baju kurung, or we give some beras or some rice to Philippines or to Gaza, whatever. So normally I will politely say, I will introduce the term beneficiary driven rather than donor driven. Our mindset in Malaysia has been donor driven. We want to give a baju kurung because we thought people in the other country is wearing baju kurung. So this is where we will come in and educate and advise donor, look, thank you very much, give us the baju kurung, we will sell it in our charity shop in Bangi, whatever, but the money is then taken and channeled.
Okay. I'm sure every cent and every dollar count, especially in areas like Gaza. And if I can go to specific stories now, for example, the work done at Al-Qura, so a school that suffered from the bombings and the attack. First, you have to build up the infrastructure, then you have to build up the morale and the psycho perspective. So, if you can share with us the story of building that part of the Gazan community, which is the basic necessity of school.
Talking about Al-Qura specifically, Islamic Relief has rebuilt the school 3 times. Because it was affected 3 times actually by bombing.
A favorite for the bombers.
Yes. And building wise, you can imagine like rehabilitating a building 3 times, which is basically not the most important part. You talked about psychosocial.
Yes.
The students are the most important thing. They have seen their school being damaged and destroyed 3 times. What we try to do is basically each time we rehabilitate it, we make sure to make it even nicer than the time before. And at the same time, we have our psychosocial program that works on students with their counselors and teachers to bring them in safely to school, because some of them are even afraid to go back to the school.
How big is the school and how many students, if we can try to picture from here?
Yeah, it's basically 24 classrooms. Each classroom hosts around 50 students.
A building by itself, or is it integrated into
a
complex?
Building. It's an L-shaped building.
2 stories high?
2 stories. So it's basically 24, around 1,000 girls in the school. This school is basically almost in the center of Gaza. Brother Zirul probably have visited it in one of the visits, and it's in a very populated area.
I have to go for the last break, but once we are back, I want to link schools and youth, because the future of any community are their young.
Absolutely.
So how is it for Gaza? Because they've got to carry on with life, they've got to earn a living, they've got to upgrade their skills, they've got to be matched to possible employers inside Gaza. Some might be lucky to go outside. And let's talk about that, because one thing that's impressive about Islamic Relief, I think, is the ability to go beyond just giving aid, but building capacity, especially the intangible ones in terms of skills and thinking, psychosocial. That we'll discuss after this break, because maybe if you want to contribute after this, maybe it's more valuable to give expertise than just giving resources like money, for example. Let's discuss that after this break.
Very good. Thanks.
You know, a few days ago, for the first time, at the General Assembly, United Nations in New York, a very, very august place, for the first time, the representative from Palestine was able to join for a resolution to vote. So even though accepted as a non-member, and in the GA, General Assembly, there's no voting power for any bad country, just like in the Security Council. So that's how far Palestinians has come in galvanizing themselves through political means or whatever. But tonight on agenda, we're talking about empowering a very marginalized 1.7 million people living in a very congested area, cut off strategically from all means of empowering themselves. You want to go to the sea, it's very difficult to do so. You want to have clear sewage and sanitation, power being given to whatever is not as regular as should be. You want to try to think that maybe we can get petroleum just off our coast. That is also off limits to you. So what's left? What's left in this battered space called Gaza, bombed for God knows how many times, people traumatized until I've had people here from Gaza who told me that every time a loud thing happened, this boy was just coil himself up into like a ball and just shout himself hoarse and don't want to listen to anyone because so traumatized. And yet you guys have managed to build up a school, and you even have training for young people so that they can build up their skills and knowledge and be matched to employers. How do you do that? How do you empower the young there right now?
Well, probably, you know, this is a story of life, you know, that we have to keep on going, and we shouldn't surrender to the situation, status quo, whatever. So the hope in the future youth generation is what we have. So definitely we have to invest in them as much as we can. Islamic Relief specifically is concentrating for the coming 3 years. Actually, we started last year and we'll continue, inshallah, for the coming 3 years on developing the technical, vocational education and training sector, which is basically give the young youth opportunities to learn technical skills.
Majority of the 1.7 million, they are young people.
Yes, yes. In Gaza, 50% of the population is below 18 years old. So it's basically
7 to
school
800,000.
Yeah, so when you say, when you go up to 24 years, university graduations.
How are they as students? When you can bring horse to water, we always hear that, but whether they will drink. When you give all this training, how are they in receiving it on average?
Let's talk about an example of an international IT company that came into Gaza and had a very rapid training or actually rapid assessment for around 200 university students on software development, and they were astonished of the results that they got in 2 days. Actually, it's something over the weekend done usually. So the capacity and the capabilities and the follow-up of whatever is recent around the world is like minute by minute. But they don't have opportunities to use it properly.
And one way to circumvent physical restriction of barbed wires and high walls is to use services.
Yes.
Because services, I think in 2010, if I look at the data, that's about 58% of the Palestinian GDP.
Yes.
So if the skills orienteering towards delivery of services, which doesn't need physical crossing of borders,
True.
that
True.
would be very valuable.
Absolutely true. This is absolutely true. And as Islamic Relief also, we are working on a project called e-lancing, if I'm using the right word. And it's a freelancing over the internet.
Okay.
And we're also, amongst other organizations in Gaza, also supporting outsourcing of services
if
to
I'm
the
in
internet.
a company that wants to do something good for Gaza, I don't have to send my people there.
Yes.
All I need to do is go to Islamic Relief, for example, and say that can we match this sort of task for people in Gaza to do online?
Absolutely. And I really encourage people to try. And it's basically an opportunity to give an option of work opportunity for local youth, and don't settle for any standard less than whatever you get around the world.
And if they want to be sure, they can train online, educate the youth, then the youth can be trained to work into the system.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, there is something called Google Summer of Course. Which is basically a kind of software development over the internet in the summertime for youth around the world. And I think 2 years ago, a Palestinian from Gaza won the first prize, and he went to the States to continue his education with this.
So, Al-Qura School, for example, if there's one big screen that is networked to the internet, and they can see the world. Even if the world is cut off from them, they can reach out to the world and the world can reach out to them. So let's ponder that possibility. It's already doable. You said it. So thank you so much for making time. Let's hope that we can network online at least.
Absolutely.
More Malaysians to contribute to help brothers and sisters in Gaza. Even though you're a non-Muslim, there's nothing to stop you from contributing, correct?
Absolutely not.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, if you may have me mention here that one of our major strategic partners is a Catholic organization in the UK, and we're implementing projects jointly in a number of countries. One of them is Gaza.
Thank you so much. You can Google Islamic Relief. They are very strategic. A lot of information, but if you still cannot find, there's always Extra Awani yang will put you in touch. Terima kasih banyak. Hantarkan pandangan anda sendiri sama ada menerusi di talian internet laman Susawang ataupun terus muat turunkan aplikasi Extra Awani iOS ataupun Android, dan anda boleh juga mencari maklumat tentang perkara ini. Dan kita jumpa lagi. Ingatlah, ini bukan isu sama ada orang Muslim ataupun tidak, tapi ini isu kemanusiaan sejagat. Dan kita harus membantu orang yang kurang upaya berbanding dengan kita, walau di mana jua mereka berada. Sekian, selamat malam dan terima kasih.
Thank you for opening the outsourcing issue there. That's very important.
It's cool.
Thanks a lot.